district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? Welcome back to the GOAT District Week 12 edition. I think it's Week 12. Pretty sure it's Week 12.
Week 12.
The Dirty Dozen. Thank you, Theo. Glad you're here to confirm. Guys, we're not here to tell you JT is the 101 because Theo, Dan, and I have been telling you that since I think last winter, at least last spring. Check the tweets and the video to confirm that. But tonight is all about, we talk about it. We get certain guests, Theo, and it's all about grabbing your IPA, your pen and paper, sitting down and writing notes. Because tonight is kind of like a roadmap. We talk about the FFPC. A lot of you, if not most of you, play on the FFPC, high stakes, high volume tournaments. And tonight we have a guy that's basically bringing you the blueprint, the black and white, the data, the numbers, the basically success, checkpoints on how to build winning rosters, how these winning rosters got to where they are now in the season, where we think they're going to go, as we make a run through these playoff tournament rounds. Theo, big guest tonight. You see him on the screen. He's the fantasy mojo, Darrin Amari. Welcome to the GOAT District, brother.
Yo, thanks for having us. Haven't done a stream in a while, but Week 12, we got a lot of, data to look at through the course of the season, and this is it. This is the final week before we hit the league playoffs. So good to be here.
Yeah, welcome. We're really happy to have you.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff. I looked at the show sheet that you guys sent over, and I spent a good bit of time today putting together some data. There's going to be a lot of visual things for us to check out, and we're not going to go about speculation and theories on how things were done. We got some facts on what's been happening this year, and maybe prove or disprove some of the theories that happened during draft season.
I love that you say that, Darrin. I'm in the medical field. I'm not a doctor. I only play one on this channel, but dermatology, right? And I'm basically seeing doctors, nurses on a regular basis. And one thing that I love about, what I'm presenting to them, it's always based on clinical data, facts, black and white. I'm not there to say what I think is happening. And I think that's what you're bringing to the table tonight. And I think that's very important because there are a lot of assumptions and thinking we know it all. We say it often, we don't know shit. And tonight, I think a lot of people are going to realize that maybe they didn't go about the right way. And maybe that's why their team isn't one of those teams with an asterisk beside it as they look at the standings. Or maybe it is, and this is a confirmation on, what they should continue to do. So let's get into it. FantasyMojo.com. Talk to me about it. How long have you had the site going? It's one of my favorite sites. I know Theo and Dan, we have it all the time. Again, we'll start throwing it out on the screen a lot more now that we're getting a little fancier with our effects here. But talk to us about the site and let the people who maybe haven't come across it know what they can find there.
Yeah, so we've actually been around since 2009, but as the popular, and it's basically all things FFPC. I call it the essential companion. It's the living archive of everything FFPC. And I mean, for the most part, it's people really hammer it during draft season. Because we've got all the ADP for every single format that they've got, the best ball, main event, dynasty, all the hybrids of dynasty. We got the ADP and the draft boards for all those. And with, we've got archives of all this data going back to 2010 as well. End season, people have probably seen us run. We have the waiver run summaries every morning after the waivers run. So you kind of get a bird's eye view of, what the top players pickups were, what people were spending. And we have archives of those as well back through the years, because that's important, because it's really a model that you're building year to year, and you can sort of project, what you should be bidding on players by looking at previous years. Like it's a week to week thing, and it follows similar patterns. So we got that. It's a whole archive. And of course, Pros versus Joes. If people follow that, it's the whole history of that competition, and we've got the current leaderboards, for that as well, and the results from the previous years. And then we do analysis, around tournament winners and the main event and football guys, and just tracking year to year, who won the events, like how did they construct their teams, and have different sort of analysis points along those to try and develop like a playbook of how you should approach these tournaments, and what did the winners do when they took these tournaments down. And I think tonight we're going to talk about some things that's going to feed into that. What are we seeing this year, and how is it like mirroring what happened in previous years? But yeah, basically, if you're doing FFPC, this is a site that needs to be on your radar. And it's most of the serious players on FFPC are subscribers for the most part. So in a nutshell, that's what's going on there.
It's a no-brainer. We say it often. The best players play on the site. So why would you not want to see what they're doing? And that's basically what that is, a peek behind the curtain. Like Darrin said, you can literally have draft boards from actual drafts as they're going. They don't even have to be done. So if you're early, like Theo and I, like in February, looking for those early drafts, Darrin has that on the site, man. And it's, priceless information. It's literally the site I use the most, especially in those early months of the off season.
Yeah. And I'll add that, even if you're not a serious FFPC player, there's a lot of very bad ADP data on the net. If you're playing fantasy football and you actually care about it, Fantasy Mojo is a site you absolutely need to subscribe to. You can see the draft boards for the highest stakes drafts. You can see the dynasty information. It's an invaluable resource for anybody who takes it seriously, whether you're an FFPC player or not. There's something on that site that can help you. It can also help you see the trends during the summer, where you can compare a draft board from maybe 2 weeks back and kind of see where people have pivoted. It's a fantastic site. And like these guys, I'm on it every single day during the summer, checking and seeing what's going on. So absolutely recommend it to anybody listening to this podcast.
Yeah. And with the playoff challenge coming up soon, once we wrap things up in a regular season, they'll have the playoff challenge. We have a lot of content around that. I actually have an optimizer tool that helps you build your FFPC playoff challenge rosters. And then I also have the historical data around, what, like last year, we have all the teams. You can look at the roster constructions of the teams in their final standings. And then I don't think I ever actually released this last year, but I have like, what was the perfect roster that you could have built? And what did that look like in comparison to what the winning team actually had? And the winning team didn't actually, play the best roster. So once we get into that time frame, I'll be releasing, that data as well.
Shout out to Anna in the chat. Anyone else, you got questions for us tonight for Darrin? Drop them. As you guys know, we're here to answer your questions, help you guys out. What's your favorite tournament, Darrin? Like you see the data on all these. Tell us about your portfolio, what you played during the season, and what your favorites are.
Yeah, I mean, I play a mix of everything. I'm not like a crazy high volume like
degenerate like we are.
Yeah. I mean, those guys. Yeah, I do like like a half dozen football guys. I got a couple main events. I do play more best ball than anything else because, I mean, we start in friggin' January, so that's like we're just hammering best balls up until late April or May. So that's a good 6 months of just hammering best ball. So I usually end up doing more of those than anything else. But as far as, I mean, football guys is probably my favorite tournament. just because as like the data curator, all of the drafts are online. Now, some of the main event drafts, I don't have access to like what all the draft boards look like because they're live. But the Football Guys gives me a complete snapshot of what people have been doing, and the duration's longer too. Like you start in late April and it goes all the way to September. So when I throw out those diagrams of like the ADP patterns, you know, you've got like a bigger time frame to look at as well. So I mean, I kind of like the Football Guys for that reason.
Guys, fantasymojo.com. It's a no-brainer. Theo and I were talking earlier, and I don't know if you want to give that out, but it's super cheap. Like it's the value outweighs the price. It's one of those, you know, a lot of our favorite sites that we talk about, I find that's the case. Maybe you can give them an idea of what they're expected. I'm pretty sure it's less than a cup of coffee a month, if I'm not mistaken.
It's I mean, it's less than $30 for the whole year.
Yeah.
Which, as some of the guys who subscribe, they would probably pay 10 times that for what they're getting. But I mean, I try to make it, you know, available to like players of all sort of budgets. So I don't want to be like, you know, here's a $249.95. You know, it's not what it is. It's just we're trying to make it accessible to as many people as possible. What some of the higher stakes players don't like, because they like to keep, you know, they like to protect their secrets.
Yeah.
So when I put out too much information, people actually sort of get upset at me sometimes because they don't like, you know, knowledge spreading in the high stakes world. But you know, try to help everybody out.
Yeah, it's like people that don't like when the default rankings change. That day that the default rankings change in the Football Guys tournament, some people are always a little angry.
Yeah.
You know, got to keep those edges.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I'll get notes from people when, you know, you shouldn't have put that up, you know, because they feel like, you know, I'm going to inform somebody right before like a waiver run or something. And then it's like, all right, I got to be careful here. I'm going to piss people off.
Guys, check it out, fantasymojo.com. Darrin, we're happy to have you on tonight. We're going to be picking your brain. Guys, let's jump right into the data. Theo, I'll let you start this off. I don't know if Darrin knows this, but when we brought Theo in, you know, we flew him up here to see Dan and I. It was a live interview process. He went through rigorous, you know, it's a whole thing, man. You don't even want to know. But one of the requirements was that he gets you on the show, because, you know, you're a hard get, man. Like you said, you don't do a lot of these. So we appreciate you hanging out with us tonight. And look at that. You already got a new subscriber right there. One of our favorites, Anna Jimenez, in the chat. So shout out to her and shout out to you. Guys, check out the site tonight. Smash the like as we keep bringing on these powerhouse guests. Theo, start it off in the data.
So all summer long, we had a real trend towards zero RB builds. We saw them a lot. There was a lot of proponents for them. We heard a lot about the dead zone. How are these zero RB drafters doing in the main events and the Football Guys?
Well, today I took a look at the top 100 teams that are projected to make the championship round. So, you know, we got 1 week left, and 2 teams out of every division are sort of, you know, already destined or are projected to make the championship round. So what I wanted to do was look at the top 100 of those teams that are slated to be in the championship round and take a look. And I looked at the roster construction of these guys. You know, who was using zero RB, who was using hero RB, who was hitting it, you know, the going at it with a back-to-back running back to start, sort of like your classic approach. So what I found was that, and I'm going to share my screen here because I mapped some of this stuff out. So if you can see this here, so this is a page that I put together.
Is there any way to
zoom in?
Yeah, there you go. Beautiful.
There we go.
Beautiful.
So I got the top 100 teams here. And what I did was I color coded them. The teams that are green went RB to start. The teams that are yellow were zero RB teams. and the teams that are red are the hero RB. Now, if you look, the teams that started RB are like dominating the leaderboard. So there's 2 0 RB teams in the top 100.
Wow.
So, and that's at 78 and 81. Now, people might argue, well, most people, it's the 0 RB is a small percentage. So, of course, you're going to have a lesser percentage of teams like, up in the tournament. So then I did like another analysis and I said, well, let me take a look at all the teams across the tournament and sort of classify them. So 0 RB teams were drafted 3.58% of the time. So there's 473 of them out of 13,200. And the classic RB start was, like a third. So almost 33%. So between 3% and 32%, that's like, okay, 10 times more classic starts. Yet in the top 100, we've got 25 times more RB teams than we got 2 0 RBs. So, okay, well, that's 1/10 of the classic. Well, then we should have like 20 classics. No, we have 51. So the RB teams are destroying the field right now in terms of, who are the strongest teams heading into this, final week. So that's what I'll say about, I don't think 0 RB as much as this is my thought on 0 RB. 0 RB is like, it's like the Loch Ness Monster. There's a whole ecosystem and, market around it. And it's a great content vehicle. But is it really winning tournaments? Like maybe in a confined league, that's one thing. But we're talking about tournaments here. So it's a fun thing to take part in. Like it's great. It's great fun. Hey, look, my yellow board. Well, where are those teams at right now? I mean, they're not really, performing up to standard or what the expectation was. So if you've been through the wars of tournament play over the years, like Theo, this, that in that 3-week sprint, the teams that win are the ones who have traditionally a dominant running back, 1 or 2 of the dominant running backs who just explode those final 3 weeks. Now, you're not going to just find these running backs, in the 8th, 9th round. That's not where you're going to find them. You're going to find playable guys, 0 RB. We're going to win the flex. Okay, you're going to win the flex maybe some weeks, but based on the data that I've seen, where are they at? I mean, they're not winning the flex this year anyway. And then when you get to that crunch time in the final, the 3-week sprint, you're not going to have like who have we picked up on the wire this year that's going to, destroy, during, take off during that 3 weeks. So maybe Elijah Mitchell. I mean,
that's the first. Yeah, it's the only name that came to my head. And
Elijah Mitchell, Cordero Patterson. I mean, it's been really a light year. Dearness Johnson had some weeks. But I agree with you, and I think it's one of these things where you'll see maybe some high-profile analysts really hitting that 0 RB, and people kind of jump on to it. And then when we started the draft process, you would see it less frequently than when we ended it. Like when you drafted in August, you'd see 0 RB teams, sometimes 2 or 3 of them in every single draft in the football guy. So it was really like a phenomenon. And I also think that that a lot of the 0 RB drafters are naturally attracted to drafting these younger, unproven running backs because they're all about the upside. So when J.K. Dobbins and Cam Akers both went down, and then Travis Etienne went down, it was like a domino effect where people just started punting the running back position entirely. So it was a real phenomenon this summer. And I do think you'll see it correct itself in this upcoming summer. Where people maybe won't be quite as into the 0 RB because, a lot of these 0 RB teams are not advancing. And, you see with the amount of money you put into it in fantasy football, how your teams have done. So I think that a lot of teams will start correcting themselves, as we approach this next draft season. But yeah,
Right.
I mean,
Was
hard.
really, it's really strange because with people, 1 year after another, it's like recency bias, and they'll do what has won in previous years. But this zero RB phenomenon, it wasn't based upon success from the prior year. It was this groundswell of hype that caused everybody to start doing it. And like you said, some of a lot of the notable running backs went down, and people, maybe it freaks some people out. But what you're seeing is Jonathan Taylor dominating. We'll look at something else soon. We're going to see like who are the players that are, most commonly owned on these top scoring teams. And it's the guys who, it's the first, second round backs that, you had to hit the right ones, but you had to be playing that game.
Yes,
you had
in order
to
hit
be
the right
mix.
ones.
You had to be sitting at that table taking those guys,
especially when JT fell to the second round for a while.
Exactly, and that was bullshit with Marlon Mack's coming off an Achilles injury. Who ever had success coming off an Achilles? So I never really bought that, but and then there were some other things like Wentz. There's questions about Wentz, and it's like, so if you bought into Taylor, and I didn't get as much of him as I would have liked, even in best ball. But those are the guys who are living large, and him and Eckler, they're kicking ass.
Smashed you in the mouth this weekend if you didn't have them.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because I know personally one of my favorite approaches this offseason, kind of that, I forget what I was even calling it, but people call like hero RBs, anchor RB, stud RB. Where does that fit in this discussion? Because you're talking kind of the RB, and then you're talking about the zero RB. Where does that fit in this discussion? Where do you see success there? Is that?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's still not as successful. So there's 5 of those teams in the top 100 here.
Wow.
And so 9% of teams overall went hero RB. And then I might lose some people here, but then it's like, what percentage of those? Now, if you figure 2 teams out of 12 make the championship round, right, by default, so that's a 16% chance in your league. So if 16% is the average for a team to make it to the championship league or championship round, then you can use that as, okay, that's the break-even point. So then when I look at the zero RBs, like, all right, so 16.7% of zero RB teams. So that's like right on par. Like there's nothing special about that. That's not any secret Konami code that people did that are putting them in the championship round. The hero RBs are below the line. So those aren't working out as well, mostly because if you did that, you didn't get any second round back. So that's a lot of Ecklers, a lot of Taylors that people didn't get.
Yeah.
But the dual RB starts are 20%. So they are way above that watermark. I mean, they are exceeding expectations. So, and we'll see. The season's not over yet, but we got most of the season in the books now, and these are the teams that are going to go on to the sprint. So, if you went all in on one of these super fun strategies, like you might be like on the outside looking in. So it's something people need to, and a lot of times you have to like live through it. You know what I mean? Because I think there's a lot of lesser experienced players who maybe went down that path. Like you have to have been playing this, like Theo, we've been playing forever. So we know you've been through the war, like, what's hype and what the reality of the situation is. So, but sometimes you need to pay the price and live it to see what happens.
A lot of the decisions are made off experience, right? Once you've done a few decades through this thing. Right.
So, but we'll be doing it again next year. That'll be the ongoing debate of, this is super cool. And this is what it gets me is like, this is the way attitude. Like, why is this is the way based on what proven results?
Especially when it's like following the herd type of approach.
Yeah.
Which never works out, man. Well,
it's a content vehicle. That's what I'm calling it. It's a Loch Ness monster. It's like, we're going to have fun doing this, but then like, where is the payoff? Like where we never see the result,
And I think that that the original zero RB drafters, like Chris Ficarra has been on this show twice. one of the best NFFC drafters going. And he used to be a zero RB guy. He hit on it. This is, years and years and years ago. But that's when wide receivers were going later, when the running backs were basically, he found a niche where he could extract value. Nowadays, the wide receivers are correctly priced. So you're not going to get that great value. If you want Devontae Adams, then you're taking him 6 overall. It's not like you're able to kind of get around it and take like a bunch of wide receivers. The basic idea, I feel like, is people think it's being risk averse, but being risk averse doesn't really pay off. You've got to be able to take those big leaps. And hey, Derrick Henry, if he would have stayed healthy, would have cashed a lot of tickets this year. And that one, obviously, fell apart. But it's these drafters that drafted, 2 unbelievable running backs are really, really sitting strong right now. I mean, anybody you take in fantasy football comes with risk. It's a sport where there's injuries, but jumping on this kind of fad concept, it doesn't make you smarter, and it doesn't make you that unique this year either. So, I mean, kind of the proof is in the pudding here.
Yep. And this premise that I'm just going to pick a running back off the waiver wire, that's going to be that it's really oversold as something that's easy to do. Like there's been like 2 running backs all year that you picked off the waiver wire that were.
And how much did they go for?
Yeah, there you go.
How much did you have to spend to get them? Right.
There's and the odds of hitting on one of those is like 1 in 8, 1 in 10, and then like all your fab is gone. You get one swing at it, and then if it doesn't pay off, well, the wing gone. I mean, we're going to look at that too when we look at like what waiver wire hits and misses were. But it's just it's just like it's so easy to go grab. Like that's like the hardest thing to do is to get like the back in any given week that is going to pay off. And more often than not, it's not doing it like when you need it. It's like grinding along the way, week to week, just constantly churning your bench, and you have them already on your bench when the situation materializes. It's not, let me go get one now. It's like you have to have already had them on your roster in most cases, for the ones that really pay off. So that's, but you got to play the season out, and it's, and not everybody's like doing, I only do 0 RB, but you kind of like, you do different strategies, and which ones sort of, are legit, or, maybe this isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. But we're seeing this year so far, RB was the way to go this particular year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do have one of those teams in the top 100 where I did go with a hero RB. I guess I took Mixon as my first RB in the second round with Kelsey, and that team's doing really well. But I wish I could have gone back and adjusted my strategy in a lot of these teams, because a few of these teams, if you look at it, if you just would have changed that one pick, it's the difference between being in the cash in week 12 or really needing this win even to get that opportunity to compete for it. So I think we definitely learned a lot this year based on the outcomes. And I think next year, like Darrin said, there's going to be some other fad where people are going to jump on, and you'll see the 0 RB teams right back in the mix. But the data is there. You don't want to miss the next Jonathan Taylor next year, whoever that is. Not JD, not to insult you. There maybe won't be another Jonathan Taylor, but if there is one,
for sure there won't be another. He's the GOAT, man. He's that's it. Right. That's it. It's done. I have sorry, go ahead, Darrin.
No, I was just gonna say, like, in the whole dead zone phenomenon too. Like, I didn't really take a look at that, but I know like that's where DeAndre Swift was going, and there was a lot of good backs in those rounds. There was a lot of duds, but it certainly wasn't something you should have completely avoided if your draft sort of took you in that direction. So, but I'll let somebody else do the analysis on that. I'm sure they'll dig that up, and there'll be plenty of articles on that next season.
I have 2 questions, just again, totally off, not on the show sheet, but I'm wondering if this is something you have or you're able to pull. If not, it's not a big deal. But where does tight end play into those teams that you're talking about, like those winning teams that are going RB? Where do the tight ends, like, are these guys drafting in the 3rd and 4th, 5th, those top tight ends in that area, or are these mostly waiting to get depth later on?
So if you look at, just focusing on the first 2 rounds, I broke it down further, and I was like, well, what's your success rate of getting into the championship round based upon your first 2 picks?
Okay.
Positionally. And I do this for best ball. We do a best ball analysis.
My other question was, how does it differ from best ball? Because I'm super interested. Yeah.
So tight end's sort of a down year. And again, if you see this chart up, again, 16.66 is your.
Let me put that up there.
It's the average.
Okay.
So, so over here on this chart, I've got, okay, your first 2 picks were RB, QB, RB, RB. And then over on the far right-hand side, they've got like what was the result of, what percent of those teams are projected to make it to the championship round. Far and away, RB, 20% of those teams who went RB are getting into the championship round. And then if you looking at tight end, tight end, some people, 160 teams went tight end, 13.8%. I mean, so that's really not good. That's way below average. Wide receiver, tight end, running back, tight end, it was almost average, but that's running back propping up the tight end there. So I think it's going to be a down year for tight end, but when we get to sort of like there's some other things we're going to look at, you'll see which tight ends have the most success this year, and then we can sort of identify like, okay, well, that guy was like a 6th, 7th rounder type of thing. I'm not even sure where Kelsey's at, so I'm interested myself to see where Kelsey's at. I ran a lot of the data, but I didn't have a lot of time to look into it. So we'll explore this stuff together.
Yeah, I mean, I just off that initial chart right there. I mean, Darrin Waller this summer, that was a guy who has had bad hit rates, and then George Kittle in the 2nd round. That was a guy that people were excited to get, and like JD said, he was injured, missed a lot of it. So those 2 guys. Really drag teams down from the tight end spot.
Yeah, Kittle has so many weeks out. He killed you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And historically, elite tight end, it's a pretty safe bet, but usually have those top 3 guys, and then it's the ones that follow them for the next 4 or 5 rounds that are very iffy. But this was, and I don't know that you could call Waller a bust, but certainly Kittle has been thus far. But we don't know what's going to happen the rest of the season, so the jury's still out, I would say.
I'll say Waller more of a disappointment than we expect. Right. I expected a lot more, and just not necessarily he looks bad, but it's been a disappointment and a little inconsistent in terms of the way the Raiders have used him, and the volume he's seen week to week was disappointing as well. So
for a 1st round pick, you wanted more.
Absolutely.
The hype just gets, you look at a lot of these guys like AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, Waller, like if you're looking dynasty side of things, you sell that hype, man, when these guys are considered top 1, 2, or 3 at their position, and if you get the value, it's rare that you're going to lose in that deal. And I know I've done it with guys like DK Metcalf and Diggs once they get up to the top, and it's kind of it's hard to do because you see them doing such great things at the time. I mean, I wouldn't be selling JT right now. That's not kind of what I'm talking about. But a lot of these receivers, quarterbacks that shoot up really quickly, even Mahomes, man, if you sold him right at the top, I mean, you could probably buy him at a discount right now, right? So just keep that in mind as we go through. Theo, I'll let you take the next one because I got like 50 million questions for Darrin at this point. So throw it on there.
So we kind of went over the roster builds. During the summer, another thing we see quite often is stacks. Skinny stacks, full-on stacks. Teams really looking to stack a particular team. Sometimes we see teams trying to have a double stack with 2 teams. So the stacking, a lot like the zero RB, became a very big thing. I would say, the last 2 summers, you've seen teams, especially in the Football Guys tournaments, really try to build a stack. What stacks have you seen that have had the best success rate in the 220s so far, Darrin?
I don't have exact stack data, but
or has there been a is maybe we could just pull up, think about the first few teams at the top of the leaderboard. I have not been seeing any real stack teams.
What would it be, like a Stafford Cup?
Well, the one that just based on some of the data that I have seen, let me see if I can pull something up here. Like Lamar Jackson, Marquise Brown,
Hollywood, yeah.
Mark Andrews is probably the most successful one right now. But
I hope you guys were listening this offseason when every episode I mentioned how Baltimore is such a value offensively. But, just check the records, guys. It's all on video. Just saying.
JD had a nice run. JD was pumping Jonathan Taylor, Deebo Samuel, and the Ravens stack. So props to JD tonight. Props to JD.
Thank you, Theo. my fantasy teams are benefiting. Thank you.
There you go.
So right now I'm sharing. Let me see. Can you share the screen again, JD?
Yes, sir. Yep.
All right. So now what we got up here are, I took a look at the top 200 teams in the and actually the football guys. So we're seeing like the ownership. So we're seeing Lamar Jackson up there, Tom Brady, Herbert. So if we're talking stacks, and it's like, like I said, it's Marquise, Andrews, Lamar, Tom Brady with, who's he stacked with? Godwin's got to be up there. Actually, he's not there. Gronk is there. What other? Herbert. So is Keenan Allen there?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because
Keenan Allen.
There you go.
Probably got more than Mike Williams.
Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase.
Yeah. That's
going to do it. And then, there's Stafford. Yeah, so Stafford Cup.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts, but I'd be surprised if we got any Eagles receivers up here. Yeah, he's been spreading it around. That's more on his own legs than than involving his.
And I think that's probably how these guys drafted him, right?
Yeah. Yep. So I think that gives you your answer there. But in terms of ownership, Cooper Kupp is on 59% of the top 200 teams. And Deebo's up there. There's Jonathan Taylor. So this will show you like what players are, these are the guys that you needed to draft to really put yourself over the top. There's Dearness Johnson, Deonta Foreman. That's sort of people just pick them. It's like the current composition. So, but that's kind of what you're looking at there. But this is
so that would include guys they picked up off waivers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's some names in there. You see Chase, Hollywood Brown was fantastic value, and I think really looking at a chart like this, this is a wonderful thing to go back in to look at in the offseason and kind of say to yourself, why was Hollywood Brown going that late? What were the things we were missing? Jamar Chase when he fell for reasons that were at this time are kind of laughable, and then we see DeAndre Swift on 17% of the teams. The fact that he fell to where he was going, at this point is pretty laughable. And he's just the guard. People were worried about the offense. People were worried about whatever. People were worried about Jamal Williams. I don't see Jamal Williams showing up on that chart there. And it's
no.
You see these talented guys, the talented guys falling, and you ask yourself how they got there. I think this summer you're going to see or actually really this spring, you'll see hundreds of articles trying to identify the next Cooper Kupp. To me, that's a guy that it's going to be difficult to try to chase and find that. But I think we can find the next Deebo Samuels, the next Hollywood Browns, those kind of guys. I think you can identify why are they going at this point in the draft. And it's actually kind of a funny phenomenon. And Dan Williamson brought this up, where the dead zone also caused more people to take wide receivers in those particular rounds, where it seemed like there was a rush to go rounds 3, 4, 5, 6. People were hammering the wide receiver spot. Then you got to rounds, 7, 8, 9, and people pivoted over to running back, especially those, modified zero RB type builds, where they would automatically start taking, those 7th, 8th, 9th round guys. So the guys like Deebo and the guys like Hollywood Brown ended up going in that range. So it's like a domino effect there. And the teams that took DeAndre Swift would maybe open themselves up to taking a Deebo a Hollywood. It's just kind of the way it goes in with these win rates. But
Right.
I think there's
And
some lessons to be learned.
The later one of these guys is drafted, the easier it is to get yourself up on top of this chart. Like if you're, it's very easy to not pay off on your draft capital and sort of not be, highly owned on one of these things. If you don't, George Kittle's not going to be on here. Waller's not going to be on here. It's the later guys that are just sort of guys who exceed expectations are the ones that's Elijah Moore's up on there now, and he's hardly even played. But that's
shout out to Guilds with the Danny Dimes.
Yeah, get the Danny Dimes and Kenny Galladay didn't they flatlined on this particular analysis. They're nowhere to be found.
That is a tough one, and I think that just the takeaway here is
goodbye Clapper, goodbye Mr. Clapper. All right.
The huge 4 stacks is not really solid draft strategy. I mean, Andrew and I have one Chargers stack team that's doing pretty well, but it's because it fell to us. We got Eckler at value, Keenan Allen at value, Herbert fell to us late, Mike Williams fell to us late.
Which is usually a general rule of stacking, Theo, and I think that's where people go wrong is the stack works if it falls to you, but if you're reaching, you right away you eliminate the advantage that you gain.
Absolutely. And I think that some people will even go into a draft looking to get that stack. The stack has got to come to you, like you said, where somebody will say, I got to build my stack. It's just poor draft strategy. We had Abib Agbatoba, the back-to-back Football Guys champion from 1st and 15, and he's obviously one of the best drafters around. And he never really looks to stack. He's had 1 or 2 teams where he said, it kind of happened where maybe you have a correlation play with like a QB tight end or a QB wide receiver, but he never would go in with that mentality. I think it's another lesson to be learned. Take the stacks when there's value. We like correlation. I like to have, I think that's a nice strategy that if you take a quarterback, you like to have maybe one player to go along with them, whether it's a tight end or wide receiver, but you don't necessarily want to go. Let's take a look at the Rams. If you would have forced a stack where you had Stafford and Kupp, but then you would have taken Robert Woods and you would have taken Higbee, that is not paying off nearly as well as the teams that took, obviously the teams that took Stafford with Kupp. I think you want to take smaller bets for some correlation than trying to really force it with the stack. And Darrin's really showing you the list right there because it's not like we're seeing one team with like 4 guys in there. There's nobody running away with it like that.
Right. But that's an advantage that like a volume drafter has. Like they can sit back and they know like, hey, I'm doing 70 drafts as I sort of progress through the draft season. I'm going to accumulate stacks organically as they happen. But if you're a guy who's just doing 1 or 3 drafts, they're going to be like, man, I want this stack, and they're the guy to be the ones who kind of overpay, and they're a little bit of a disadvantage in that situation too. So Abib can do that because he does so many. But if you're just doing, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm really interested to see who wins this year because Abib's won 2 years. He's a high volume drafter. Can somebody who does a lesser amount of draft can they compete with that? So unfortunately, I'm not able to. When I look at these teams, I can't see like, well, which of these guys is a high volume drafter versus like maybe this is a one off. That would be a good data point to have as well. But that part I don't have any visibility into.
Yeah, that would be off. Shout out to Guilds, the ultimate Tyler Higbee truther. That's basically why Kupp is so successful is because defenses have to.
They're focusing. He's drawing all of the attention so that Higbee is the ultimate, decoy.
He's just a magnet for all those defenders for Kupp to run free for all these touchdowns. Shout out to Guilds.
Yeah, good point there.
Guys, smash the like, smash the subscribe. Tons of goodness, more to come. Before I pass it to Theo and we let him pump his amazing weekly article that if you guys are not reading, just quit fantasy altogether. Let me ask you this, just based on, let's isolate what we just talked about, first couple rounds, RB. what are you taking from this into 2022 when you're approaching your drafts, or what should our audience take from what we've discussed so far, if anything? Because it might be nothing. And Darrin, I'll go to you first, as they're thinking, 2022 and those kind of drafts that they'll be doing soon.
I would just be cautious. Don't force a strategy. Know what the strategies are and what you can do in a draft, but just you don't know what's going to happen until you get into the draft room. And the reasons why guys like Chad have such success is because he's like a value drafter. Would he ever do a 0 RB team? I don't know. Has he done it? Maybe in a particular situation if it called for it, but he's not going to force that. Like
wasn't on purpose.
Yeah. So I mean that's what I would say. Like so that. Like I said, man, so much of this stuff is just it's content hype. It's like, all these strategies. Like, look at the teams that have won the tournaments, and you will see like what actually wins. And like I said, like I've done the analysis for back to 2017, so we know what these winning teams look like. And it's not anybody who did some extreme strategy one way or the other. It's you had those running backs who just blow up, and then you have complementary pieces on the wide receiver side. Like maybe, they'll blow up too, but you need that core running back to pull it off. So, that's what I would say. Just don't paint yourself into a corner. Just stay flexible.
Be like water, guys. Be like water.
Yeah, it's going to come with experience too. So, you got to take your lumps along the way.
Sure. Yeah, and I think when we start getting to it, I think Twitter's a big part of it. Is I think some people want to really win their draft and the board to look good, and that's not sometimes the most boring builds. Like Darrin said, are the most successful. The 3 running backs in a row is no one's going to stand up and say wow. But some of those teams are extremely hard to beat if you have 2 RB1s. And a top 15 guy in your flex, that team is going to be very difficult to beat, in a stretch of games like a tournament.
Yeah, if you hit the right ones,
absolutely.
Like, don't avoid 3 RBs. Like, well, if you hit the right 3, well, then you're golden. And then like you could have added Cup and all these other, like Thielen, and if you look at that, I'm looking at Marquise Brown, like Jamar Chase. You can do both. You can have dominant wide receivers and dominant running backs. You don't have to do one or the other. So just, stay flexible.
Like water, guys. We say it often on the show. You got to be like water. And Theo, a quote I heard many, many decades ago that just stuck from one friend to the other. And the other was a guy like souping up his Civic or, one of those things, just putting all this money into some degenerate car that nobody and he's like, just looked at him and said, you realize nobody cares. Like nobody cares. It's like those draft boards. Like, yeah, okay, you get a couple likes or whatever. What really matters is how well that team does. It doesn't matter how it looks in the draft board when you tweet it out, so you get some likes. And I think that's what's important here. Theo, talk about your article, because that's a must every week. Look, we haven't been able to get the show. I know we promised you guys a waiver wire show. It's tough getting the shows that we have going this time of year. So guys, everything you need to know is in Theo's article on a weekly basis. Player Profiler. Theo, talk about it. We both shot out the link today so people can check it out. We'll retweet that so you guys can check it out if you haven't already. But talk about that, and then maybe you can pass the question over to Darrin after.
So yeah, thank you, JD. I do the weekly waiver wire article on Player Profiler, and we try to go deep. So even if you're in a league like the FFPC, the NFFC, you're going to find some guys that can help you for this week. And we try to cover pretty much every waiver relevant guy. I think you see a lot of waiver wire articles where somebody's telling you, 2 weeks ago to pick up AJ Dillon. We're not messing around like that. We're recommending guys that are most likely available on your waiver wire. And it's been a great experience doing it this year, and have a couple more weeks to churn it out. But it's up now, and we're going to keep going. And this is a nice segue for Darrin to talk about our waiver wire hits of the year in a year that has been, a pretty empty waiver wire. Maybe you could kind of go over some of the guys that we saw. D'Ernest Johnson on that list.
Yeah, like, and when you say a waiver wire hit, I think the bar is it's like what defines a hit, and I think the bar is kind of low. For me, if I go out and I get a guy who gives me like 2 good weeks, to me that's a hit. I don't need a league winner. If I'm spending fab money and like it pays off for a couple of weeks, I feel like I got my money's worth in most cases, because you can swing and miss so much. But this sheet that I have up now, this is.
Is there any way to make that a little bigger?
Yeah, let me zoom in on this guy.
There you go. Perfect.
There we go. Okay, so these are I must have did the top 100. Yeah, the top 100 waiver wire ads for the year.
So you've got how many times they've been the total fab spent on them, and then the average bid. On there.
So total fab spent. That's an awesome tool there, and that's awesome to put that up there.
Yeah, and I don't normally do this. You can kind of like the detail of this is like in our weekly waiver wire summaries. And those are free for anybody.
That's like the market cap. That's like the market cap for each guy, Darrin, right?
Yeah, that's a lot. Like Elijah Mitchell was like the top recipient of fab, $744 average.
Damn, this is why you draft running backs in dynasty, guys. Look at that. Look how much money was spent. I had him on all my dynasty teams, just chilling.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Like people are competing for these running backs, and they're dropping the money on them, so it's not that easy. And like, so I X'd off the guys that I considered that they were a hit. So Elijah Mitchell's a hit. You got a few weeks out of him. D'Ernest Johnson was a hit. Devontae Booker was a hit. Now these are the guys that were a miss. Adrian Peterson,
rest in peace.
Good riddance. He was the second most fab burner. Sony Michel, I don't have him as I don't know if I'd classify him as a hit. I don't think he really ever paid off.
I'll pull that up real quick.
So McNichols, Tyson Williams, Tony Jones. Well, we'll see what happens this week, but he's already been through the recycle bin once. We'll see what happens this week. Mark Ingram, I guess he's a hit. He should have been a hit. Peyton Barber, Alex Collins, I guess he's a hit.
He's kind of a hit. Yeah, I would say he's kind of. But when you scroll down, you get some really exciting guys when you go a little further down.
Schultz and Conklin, I mean, they've been very productive. They've been good. Cordell Patterson's like the all-star. I mean, he's been the guy this year.
Yeah, I said a couple of weeks back that and I'm sure you've been doing this a while, but he's one of the best waiver wire ads I've ever seen in the high stakes streets because he costs almost nothing. Guys were getting him for less than 5%, and he's paid off with so many.
I got him for $1. I just want to point it out. $1. Just.
Yeah, and I'll give a shout out to Glenn Lowy because Glenn Lowy added Cordell Patterson on every team he had. I forgot what week it was, maybe after week 1. And I said, well, shit, Glenn's doing it, so I'm going to go get him every league where he's available in the second waiver wire run. So I got a lot of my Cordell shares on the second waiver wire run of the week. So he's the ultimate hit this year, and that's. I hope people are trying to chase the next Cordell Patterson next year because this was like it's absolutely unbelievable to see a guy with this late in his career just putting it together. And hopefully he ends the year well. Andrew Schellenberg and I have Cordell on a main event team that's pretty good and has a shot. So I hope he gets back healthy, but he's one of the main hits. And then like Darrin showed, like Schultz, that's a fantastic ad. I think people kind of didn't want to believe it that first night when we're in Vegas. We were watching, Schultz I think he had 6 receptions game 1. And people were like, oh, whatever, it was just the kind of the game flow. And then he does it again for multiple weeks. And people said, oh, when they're fully healthy at wide receiver, they're missing this guy. And then people just didn't want to believe it. But Schultz was a really nice addition. He gave you a lot of tight end 1 weeks. And then further down, like Darrin said, a guy can be a big hit by giving you, 4 weeks starting, 3 weeks starting. And Khalil Herbert has pretty much disappeared now with Montgomery back, but he was I think he was a great addition. A lot of people were spending it on Damian Williams or banking on him, and Herbert, gave you, I don't recall the exact number of weeks, but I think maybe about four strong weeks of starting out of Khalil. So that was a really good one.
Yeah, Damian gave it 2 good weeks.
Yeah, good call.
And then Herbert just followed him up after Damian. He got the COVID again, which was, crazy that after he sat out last year because of it, then
Tony's a guy that stands out to me there because he's got some serious league-winning upside rest of the season type of deal.
He had the one good game, but I'm starting to think, like, is Kadarius Toney like the next Odell Beckham? Like, he's living off of like that one.
Yeah, but you got a new
highlight where he beats this guy running a route, and then like I haven't gotten anything from him since. But we keep playing him, hoping we're going to get something.
New OC coming in. New OC.
Yeah.
Hopefully unleash him.
Something, not a clapper. Maybe he's like a woo 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 type of guy.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a bunch of guys, but it's hit or misses. Mostly misses.
Christian Kirk, down below, that was a good one. I mean, when it came to
Frank dropping the Ty Johnson on the GOAT district right now. Who's like a legit RB2 right now? No, with Carter out.
Yeah.
I think he'll be low end 2, high end 3. He's definitely a flex. I mean he's had I think 3 games with more than 5 receptions this year, and he'll have a chance. And then looking down low, Dan Arnold, that was one where he gave you a few weeks there. He had a dud last weekend, but and Freiermuth, teams that got him.
Yeah.
The Muth.
Tight end of the show right there.
That's my boy from Penn State, the Muth.
Absolutely. He's a beast.
Seen him up close and personal many times.
I gotta get like a moose sound or something for that.
And Dawson Knox was a huge pickup for a lot of people.
Yeah, I should have definitely had him as an X there, but
yeah. So it's I think one takeaway from Darrin's chart, and we've actually heard a number of we've had a lot of great players come on, the GOAT district in the high stakes streets. But one thing, we had Biplop Mandel, Glenn Lowy, they kind of take a step back and don't necessarily spend. Billy Wazowski does the same thing where their approach might be, instead of trying to spend the 750 on Elijah Mitchell, they might step back and try to add a lot of these 5% type guys, and kind of it's definitely paid off this year. A lot of the lower price guys, I mean, you could put together a decent.
Well, you cast the net, right? You cast the net, and you pick up whatever falls in that net from the guys who are spending the 199s on AP or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
You're just churning that roster, and you see what sticks, and it's not costing you much. It's just you have to grind and do it every week.
You guys have heard that line that Darrin just said, churning the roster. You guys have probably heard that from 90% of the guests we've had on here that are either winning players or top analysts in the game, and that's there. You nailed it,
and
man.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting for sure, especially you say like guys like Theo. I don't know how he does Wednesday nights with all the rosters he's got, because that's turning your roster, man. You got to do it right, especially with trade deadline coming up in some leagues right now.
Yeah, it's like you're not going to find a successful fantasy football player that's made money that doesn't grind waivers.
Sitting on their hand.
100%. I mean, there's some guys do it differently. You can find some very, very successful players, some great fantasy players who might want to spend up and get that one potential Elijah Mitchell, and that's the way they approach waivers. But they're active. You're not going to find anybody who doesn't attack waivers among the highly successful fantasy football players. And I think when you go into it, if you could go back and listen to our Go District podcast. I mean, we've had some of the best in the country, but these guys will not only know the really successful players, especially in the leagues where they're in the cash potentially, 1-2 seed, they'll start to notice what teams in their league have fab-wise left, what are their opponents' positions of need, and they'll try to even go even further. So I mean, the waivers it's such an important part of being a successful fantasy football player, especially when you get to the high stakes level, where you have 20-man rosters. You can kind of get by in a 15-man roster without, grinding as hard, because there's always going to be somebody for you to pick up. But when it comes to this FFPC type leagues, you've got to hit the waiver wire. That's one thing.
It's a three-headed monster. It's your draft, it's setting lineups, and it's doing waivers. And the days of drafting studs and then coasting are gone. There's no LTs. There's no Larry Johnson. Even Christian McCaffrey. Like, but the 1 year, it's so like if you had him, like you friggin' won. But it's been years. Like it's doesn't happen anymore. You have to work it. You can't just say, hey, my draft is awesome, and then
if you don't want to work, there's best ball, right? Like literally, that's best ball is your best friend, because whether you're playing dynasty and especially redraft, when you're talking these high stakes tournaments, you're not playing against a bunch of guys who are not watching. They know what's going on for a few weeks. Like, they're on top of their shit. So we talked about ADP and how close it is this year to what you would draft. Like, let's say in August versus now, it's not that far off, other than a couple of one-offs, right? So it's getting tighter. It's getting harder to get an edge. We keep bringing these guys in, like the Fantasy Mojo, like Abib, back-to-back 750K winner, to help you guys out and get that edge. And Anna Jimenez talking about, churning that roster. Guys, we talk about it every week. So you have to be active. We throw out the hashtag always be trading. Like, that was one of my first things that I kept throwing out there. And it's the same thing all across the board. Any league that you can be active in, the winners are the guys that are the most active in those leagues. It doesn't matter what buy-in it is, whether it's $20, $30, 500 or 1,000. Always the winning teams are the ones that are the most active. So guys, don't sit back on your hands. Let's cross over to best ball. Fantasy, Darrin, I got one team right now in first in that best ball tournament. I love the 125 tournament. I know we were big fans of it. We got a few teams in there. As a group, I got some individual ones doing really well. Talk to us about, win rates. What are you seeing there that's different than maybe the main events or the FBGs, and teams that are projected to advance? What are you seeing there as well?
Okay, so on the FFPC, the best ball tournament, we got 1 week left in that too before.
Crazy, eh?
That cut down. Yeah, it went fast.
A week away.
But this is something that Todd had asked me to do. Todd from PA. He wanted to know, like, the hit rates of, looking at the teams. So what's going to happen is, 2 teams from each league are going to advance to, I guess they call it the playoff bracket, but it's basically elimination. And so I looked at all, the top 2 teams from every league, and it's like, okay, what are the most commonly owned players? So Jonathan Taylor, obviously, is the most commonly owned player. He's on 46% of the teams that are projected to advance right now. Cooper Kupp. Now, this is the one that shocked me. James Conner is the number 3 player in terms of, most commonly owned that is going to advance teams. So, I mean, I didn't even really expect to see that. He's sort of been an under the radar guy, but because you drafted him so late and the production that he's given you, he's pushing these teams, over the top, and they're going to advance into the playoff brackets. So, but yeah, so these are the top guys: Taylor, Kupp, Connor, Samuel, Najee, Mike Evans, Eckler, Fournette. So we're talking about, like, what tight ends were the ones that were paying off. So Andrews, what was he, like a third? He was like a third, fourth rounder. Gesicki, Gronkowski, Hunter Henry, and Zach Ertz. Again, these are based. They're here because of their draft capital. They were drafted later, and 23% of the teams that drafted Zach Ertz are going to be advancing. Like, you couldn't have guessed that at the beginning of the year.
And Kirk Cousins is an interesting one on there as well. He's I guess he's got the 4th best hit rate of any quarterback right now.
He's number 3, and Jalen Hurts is 4.
Wow, that's
So,
that's a little surprising. I like seeing that, and then you notice the Thielen as well. So that the Vikings stack ended up working out pretty well.
yeah, and these are also guys who have stayed healthy. That's a big component of it too. Availability is key, and that's what you're seeing with a lot of these guys who are, especially with best ball. It's just it's a war of attrition in many cases. Like I look at something like my pros versus Joe's team. I think that thing sunk because so many guys are like out for the year. It's got no shot. So it's having the guys that are healthy. This is where it's a little different than season long. Season long, you can make the waiver move so that the top players will look a little bit different than what you see in best ball. It's like if you just stay healthy, you're contributing to your team. Stafford's up there, Josh Allen. These are guys who, well, Lamar Jackson, but he's probably sinking a little bit. But for the most part, these are guys who haven't missed games.
Yeah, the Connor one is super interesting. It's one of those hashtag I like him more in best ball type guys because you don't have to worry about the start sit versus Chase Edmonds for all those weeks. You just enjoy the enjoy the touchdowns. So that's a huge hit rate right there.
I have him in best ball and I have him in the fishbowl. It's literally the only teams I have him on is James Conner.
Yeah,
I've got him in
Connor
too.
I'm happy to have a decent amount of Connor. He's having a hell of a year.
But you guys talked about Thielen and Cousins. Like, is Cousins not the unsexiest quarterback every year? And does he not usually end up, in the top 10? And Thielen is kind of becoming that unsexy guy because you got JJ across the field that everybody's drooling over. And you see where these guys are positioned right now. Like we talked about earlier, some of those not so sexy teams are the ones that are the most successful right now at this time of year.
Right. And Cousins is one of those guys that I've always targeted in best ball, not because he's great, but the guy never gets hurt. He's playing all the time. So he's good that you don't want holes in your roster. And Brady never gets hurt either. So
one thing
avocados and nuts. Come on.
One thing I'll be really interested to see, as we get into the I guess you call it the knockout stage of this tournament, is how these teams were built. We tried to, for these slim best balls, with the tight end premium and also the two flexes. It's going to be interesting to see, how these teams were built in terms of number of wide receivers drafted, number of tight ends drafted. Do we see a 3 QB build? I think every team that I did basically was a 2 QB build, which I think is the optimal strategy for slim best ball. But it'll be interesting to see if one of these teams dumpster dive their way with a 3 QB build and did something there. So that's one thing I'm going to be looking forward to seeing, especially with the tight ends. How many tight ends get drafted? Some of those, and like it's funny. You show like your waiver wire hits. I mean, hardly anybody has Dawson Knox, Dalton Schultz in these slim leagues. They're just not there. So the teams with those guys, maybe they end up doing well in the knockout.
Right. And you can actually explore that right now. JD, if you want to share the screen again, I'll show you. So if you go to the main page of fantasymojo.com, well, first thing I want to show people is if you want to, there's a virtual tour that we have here. You click on this and it's going to run you through what I call the top 10 features of the site. So people should do that. But as far as this best ball goes, so I create a best ball tournament leaderboard, and the FFPC doesn't even provide this. This is something I generate on my own. So you click on that, and I've got all the teams in the tournament ranked. You go to this board, and you can click on any of these teams, and it's going to take you to the draft board. So if you want to see how these guys built their roster,
that's great.
That is badass. That I did not know.
So I can click on draft. I think draft guy is Adam Krautwurst. So let's see. I click on his team and then I look up here. Where's draft guy? So this is a 3 RB team. Eckler, Taylor, Carson. So you can sort of explore, via the leaderboards that I have, dive in and check out the how they built their draft. So Quick Doggies, number 1 started. That's surprising. Kamara and Taylor. He's got Taylor. He's got Jefferson, Kupp, Lockett. How do you do it?
Can you zoom that a bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's badass. I know, like in crypto and charting and that kind of thing, reading charts and investing, there's actual apps where you can kind of mirror what actual successful traders are doing. Guys, this is literally the fantasy football version where you're seeing what the best teams, the highest winners, the most successful roster builds are doing right here on Fantasy Mojo, guys. It's a no-brainer. Like the draft boards, Theo talked about going into a draft board that's not an FFPC, or going into a draft that's not FFPC. If you go in and you're following, whether it's the ADP draft board or a draft board from one of those high stakes leagues that you can grab, and you go into that draft, you're going to get an edge because you're following what this, where the money is.
Yeah, and I've got every draft board, that was drafted online for the past, 5-6 years linked. Another cool thing that we have, if I go home, you're talking about seeing what the money winners did. Do I have it on here? All right, so I got this league winners. Now you're seeing behind the scenes. This is subscriber stuff only. But if I want to go to the main event from last year, and then I have all the teams ranked, and then I can go in here and click on, okay, number 2 team, what did he, how did he draft? Same thing.
Yeah.
So you could surf this. You could spend days like just surfing this stuff. So Team Foster, number 2, he started.
Guys, put it this way: the amount of time you guys put into putting a tweet out about who you think is going to be the 3rd ranked running back in the next whatever weeks, you could be looking up this data and just working your builds.
Yeah,
it's crushing.
But we're bringing it back full circle here. So we're saying, what does a player want to do to win a tournament? Well, you can easily do that by checking out these boards. Like, okay, let me go to Football Guys, and we're going to look at Abib. Here's a number 1 finisher last year, won $500,000. Let me look at the draft board for Abib for last year.
Wow, I had no idea I could do that, and I'm a member. I've been a member on this site. That's awesome, man.
So he started his draft, Kamara, Kittle, Connor, and then he pounded wide receivers. So that's what this guy is. So it's that simple. Like, I'm just looking at data when I tell you the trends. Like, I'm just telling you what I've dug up and what I see. But you got to. These are the facts of what people have done. It's not some thesis, not some white paper that somebody wrote. That's like this is how it's gonna. You do it. It's like it's not about X and O. It's also like looking at what people have actually done. So.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about skin in the game. You can see people with skin in the game and how they're doing it and how they're being successful with it. I mean, this is an invaluable resource. And shout out to Frank. Frank is absolutely right with his.
Yeah, man, his totally. Shout out to Frank, Anna, just rocking the chat tonight. And when Theo or Dan or myself, like if we talk about like any of our rosters or things that we've done, trades, moves, guys we've drafted, it's just to kind of legitimize, we're walking the walk. Everything we talk about, we do that in our own teams and our own rosters. The guys we bring on are guys that we follow. This site is a site that we find invaluable. And, the information that's being dropped tonight is that smash the like if you're liking it. I know Anna is. We appreciate her in the chat. Frank as well.
So Anna just asked, can I see what his team looked like at the end of the year? And the answer is yes. So in addition to the draft boards, you can look at the drafted rosters and then the end of year rosters. So if I look at Abib's end of year roster, that's listed here. So when I do these analysis of when I look at the top 5 winners is what I usually do in the main event in the Football Guys, I'll compare like what the drafted team looks like versus what the finishing team looks like and sort of reverse engineer and figure out, well, what players did they pick up over the course of the year? And that all gets fed into my main event and Football Guys tourney championship analysis that I do. It's sort of like a postseason retrospective. But yes, so you can look at, what they drafted. And the dynasty guys love this stuff because
Absolutely.
They want to see, who do these guys, what do the rosters look like at the end of the year? because it's going to look drastically different than from what it did at the beginning of the year. Especially for like the guys who take down. And it's not just these tournament teams. It's like you can go to like there's some random $1,250 dynasty league, and you can do the same thing. So it's all there.
Yeah, and one thing that Fantasy Mojo also has as we approach rookie draft season is you can go look and see the rookie drafts from last year and previous years in your league. So you can see the tendencies of what people are doing in your league. It really gives you an idea of who might be there in your rookie draft, and you might know where maybe it's somebody who looks to draft wide receivers in their rookie draft. Or really pounds running back where I might have to trade up to get that particular rookie I want. And I'll say one thing I used Fantasy Mojo for. I got into the Triflex drafts, the Dynasty Triflex, the RotoViz League, and there was really kind of no way to prepare for this because it's a super flex with 3 wide receivers. So I would end up looking at pretty much I'd go to Fantasy Mojo and I'd pull up the higher stakes drafts and I try to have some idea of when I needed to reach and when I needed to, trade up to get that guy I wanted to get. And it was just invaluable. So I think that dynasty players also will really benefit from a subscription. It's absolutely invaluable for dynasty.
Right. And to be honest with you guys, I don't pump like, I don't go out and say subscribe. Like you go on Twitter, like subscribe and all this. You'll never see me say subscribe to the site. Maybe once I'll put a reminder, and it's very subtle. But it's an essential tool to have. But as far as like the Triflex that you were talking about, like that was a brand new format. The day they started running the drafts, we had the ADP up because nobody really knew what to expect with those things,
Mm-hmm.
So, and it'll take like 80. Their draft rooms have ADP listed in there, but those aren't like specific to the format that you're drafting. It's some like compilation of like all the drafts that they have, and it's a little bit off. So you want like the ADP specific to the format that you're drafting, like best ball super flex, best ball slim super flex. We have like all these hybrids, and it's a lot of work to do that, to slice and dice it. But my full-time job is I'm a data architect, so the data's got to be right, and
that sounds.
I'm very skilled.
That sounds fucking awesome, Darrin. That sounds awesome. He's a data architect. Like, come on.
That's what I do for a living. So I translate that to fantasy football, and everybody can reap the rewards for what we put out there.
Also, one thing that we didn't talk about is when you're looking at the ADP for the football guys or the main event or whatever, it'll show their maximum and minimum of when they were picked, which is also a really good way of looking at, you see where a guy's going, but then you also see where the highest somebody reached for him and the highest he fell. So that was always kind of, when I drafted with Andrew this summer, we drafted a ton of a guy like Elijah Moore. We would always feel good when we got him below value, basically, or if we got him at a minimum drafted. We didn't want to necessarily be jumping up and being the maximum, trying to really reach for a guy. So it takes knowing when to reach to a whole nother level when you utilize those tools.
Yeah, it's knowing what the market is, so that if you're high on a guy and you want to get him in a draft, like, oh, well, I should draft him like one round earlier. But you'll know like what the range is that you're working with. So you can almost like script out your draft if you wanted to, knowing like where the market is, So
all right, guys, smash the like, smash the subscribe, drop any questions you have. You guys are killing it in the chat. Anna just showing the smarts of our audience with her questions. Let me ask you this, Darrin. I did not ask you this before we came on live, so I'm putting you on the spot. Please be honest. Do you have a cutoff? Do you have a curfew, a deadline?
Let's go to like 11:10.
We got another 15. I like it. All right, let's do rapid fire. Should we care? Unless we get some really good questions from the chats, we're going to do rapid fire. Should we care? go to you first. CeeDee Lamb put up less than 5 fantasy points this week. I made some big moves for him in FFPC Dinos. Darrin, should we care about this subpar performance?
Well, he was injured, so that's I can't really count it against him, you know. I'd be concerned. I would care in terms of what's going to happen this week because the receiving crew is going to be a mess for Dallas. But which could be some opportunities on the waiver wire. So, I mean, yeah, let's care in that respect. But
which was the only promising Thanksgiving game, if I'm not mistaken. Huh?
Yeah.
Coming from a guy who's trying to put together a Thanksgiving special edition kickoff, Theo.
Thanksgiving got a little more rough with no Cooper and no Lamb. I'm not concerned. I think when Lamb comes back, he's what he is. He's a stud. That was an ugly game. But I think that I would expect Lamb to eat for the rest of the season. We've seen his upside and his talent. And I think, just talking about waivers this week, if you're in a bind, Cedric Wilson could be usable. He had like 7 targets last week. So I'd expect him to get, similar volume and Las Vegas, their defense can be beat. And it's a lot of pressure on Dallas to come out and get the win. That's losing 2 in a row would be really tough for them. So they've really got to get this win. So they've got to churn offense somewhere. And Wilson, Dak seems to like him a little bit. So don't be worried about CD, everyone.
Guys, go easy tip for dynasty players. Just go buy CeeDee Lamb if you can. Any of these are just buy the dip. It's just an opportunity that was not there before because anyone holding CeeDee is probably not selling. Darrin, we got to give Anna, any question she throws on, she's earned right now tonight. Dontrell Hilliard's fool's gold in your opinion?
Well, I mean, I'd pick him up. How much you're going to spend? Now you got to keep
one
in
of those
mind,
bottom feeders where we're scraping the bottom. We try to.
I think you're going to have to pay because this is the last week, man. People are going to dump what they have.
Where do you think it is? If Anna wants Hilliard, what do you think that bid is to get? Like ballpark, just ballpark. I know you're not going to nail it. Maybe you will.
I mean, I'm in a couple spots where I kind of need them, or
maybe a percentage of your what you have left.
So I wouldn't dump everything, but. Maybe 50% of what you have, 50 to 70, depending how desperate you are. Because it's.
I think at this point, if you're considering it, you're probably at the point where you need to spend the 50 to the 70. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think that if you're RB needy this week, the whole expression "you can't take it with you," you're running out of weeks here, and a lot of guys are needing this win or they're needing points this week. One of the two to keep going. And, we can say whatever we want about Hilliard, but they cut AP. And last week, Hilliard had 51 snaps and AP had 15 and Foreman had 15. So that's a huge disparity for an offense that really doesn't have a whole lot of players right now. So, if Hilliard's getting a lot of touches, we've seen this happen time in, time out where a guy kind of comes out of nowhere and has a successful, few last weeks of the year. So I would not discount Hilliard. And I agree with Darrin. If you want him, be aggressive this week because, what are you waiting for at this point? And Ty Johnson's rostered. I talked about Ty Johnson in my waiver wire article, but in FFPC leagues, more likely than not, Ty Johnson is not available to you. So, be realistic with who you can add. And it's either Hilliard or Tevin Coleman in most of these FFPC leagues, Rex Burkhead maybe. So, Hilliard should see the highest snap percentage of any of those guys. So might as well go for it if you're really RB needy.
And if this is not the perfect example of what we talked about earlier, roster construction, you're not getting like legit running backs on waiver wire unless you get lucky, you bid high, you smash that 1 week where you decided to, unload what you've got in your bank. It's pretty clear, right? What we're taking into 2022 so far with what Darrin's dropped with us tonight. Guys, JT, the 101 from way back, and Eckler just dominating week 11. Do we care? Fantasy Mojo in the sense like rest of the season, does this change anything for you?
I don't think. I mean, you're riding these guys, and you just hope that they keep it up. I mean, you got to keep in mind Taylor's got that week 14 bye, which is going to suck in football, guys. Like, you're not going to have them, and it's also going to suck in the best ball tournament. You're not going to have them. So he's catapulting teams into playoff scenarios, but. I think it was maybe it was you, Theo, was saying, like, I hope I play these guys. And no, it was actually Adam Krautwurst. I caught a little bit of their podcast. He's like, I hope I play the JT teams in week 14.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So, but you just got to ride them.
Something to note, guys. Like some, guys on the JT Ross, like they're just riding that train right now. They're high. They're telling their wife how they're going to take down all this cash, but Darrin just sprinkle some reality.
Which is maybe all the more reason to, like, make sure you are prepared for, if you've got him, make sure you've got backups prior to that. And so there's a few guys out there that maybe just make sure you're loaded, because you don't know things. The whole landscape changes like in a week anymore. Like,
especially at that position, right?
Yeah.
You want your depth at the running back position, right, Theo? No?
Yeah, you can never have enough running backs, especially when you get into tournament play. And, just taking it back to a guy like Hilliard, you might be a Taylor team. If you've got some fab left, go ahead and add the best running back available this week, so your league mates can't get him for cheap. I think that's one thing we've talked about on the GOAT District before. When you get to this point of the year, you also want to be able to block what your opponents need. So go and get them. And yeah, I think that when you see Taylor across from you, it's the player that just strikes fear in you. Like last year with Devontae Adams, when you went up against Devontae Adams, especially towards the end of the year, or a Derrick Henry, you would just take a step back and say, I'm down 30-0 to start the week. And that's just how it is with Taylor. What he's doing, breaking off these long runs every single week, is just simply amazing. So that week 14 is tough, really tough with the bye, but I think Taylor has just been unbelievable. I think he's probably the number one pick next year in redraft. And Eckler looks fantastic. You love to see it. I think that Chargers offense is kind of pointing up. Eckler's a little less scary to me week to week than a Taylor would be if I'm going up against him. But Eckler he looks fantastic. He does it in a different way, but he's just such an efficient, terrific player. So yeah, both those guys are absolute studs, absolute great picks.
Mojo, Frank's asking next season, JT, is he going 1-1? I think he's going just 100, like 1.00. Is that a spot?
I think I think you'll see some CMC mixed in there. Like, I think it'd be like 80-20, 80% JT, maybe 20% CMC.
You didn't get the memo that the Colts are making a run at the bowl. And just, I might be a Colts fan, but that's all right. All right, guys.
When Dalton Cates brought this up last week, Dalton is on the CMC number one this week. CMC number one for next year over Taylor. And I think it's going to be a big debate all offseason. I just think it's the way Taylor looks, he's still kind of ascending, and we've seen CMC miss time back-to-back years. I think that'll eventually be, like Darrin said, 80-20. But if you talk to some people now, they're still CMC number one. So that's something we can spend months debating.
No, but again, if that's you, then that's opportunities now. Go out there and buy him, right? Because you have those guys that think, yeah, it's time to move on to the next generation. Guys, I started, clapping. We got the clapper. He's gone. Darrin, does that matter? Clapper gone. Is that better for Barkley? Is it better for Kenny G? Any of them?
You would hope so, because it seems like that they got way more talent than what's coming out of that crew. So it can't hurt, I guess. We'll see. It's like I said, Tony's been sort of underachieving in terms of what he's producing. So they got so many good players there. So I would hope that it's a positive move with replacement there.
Yeah. It's Freddie Kitchens, who's an experienced guy. So, hopefully he's able to at least get the ball to Barkley and get the ball to Tony. And they just look so bad at times with Garrett. Daniel Jones might be broken, but I think that those other guys, at least maybe they'll end the year on a positive note with a little Barkley and a little Tony and make Giants fans a little happy there.
You can't handle the truth.
If we go to Zach Wilson, Theo, I'll go to you first because we just made a trade and you inherited Wilson. I know you were hesitant, and I just kept reminding you he's a rookie quarterback. It's super flex. He's got value. Slated to come back to New York this week. Should we care, Theo?
Well, it creates another potential streaming defense this week with the powerhouse Houston Texans. I think that if you're in a bind defensively, the Texans team had a nice week last week against Tennessee, and now you get Wilson coming off of injury. Michael Carter's out. I think that this is the Texans are definitely a viable streamer. So that's how I would treat the Zach Wilson coming back.
Yeah.
All right.
In the short term, it's the skill players are probably going to take a step back, but I mean, long term, he's still got a shot. So we'll see, but they'll take a little hit in the short term.
Darnell Mooney, Darrin, 16 targets. Should we care?
Wow. I mean, I think Dalton playing might be a good thing for him. So
who would have thunk?
Yeah. So I'm going to fire up Mooney wherever I got him this week for sure.
Yeah, you got to like Mooney on Thanksgiving Day, getting behind that Detroit secondary. Mooney looks good. He had the long touchdown, and the guy's explosive. And like Darrin said, having Andy Dalton back there, might open things up a little bit, especially in the passing game. So I'm looking for the Bears to do well against the Lions on Thanksgiving. I think it's hard to rely on the red rifle, but it could be a nice Andy Dalton game, and I think you'll see a Bears win, and hopefully Mooney shines. So yeah, I think I'm with Darrin. I'm going to try to fire him up wherever I have him.
All right, we have like 2 minutes before we close it out with Darrin. Really quick OTC, like super rapid fire. Darrin, Najee Harris or Mixon?
Wow, it's pretty close. And when I looked at this, I was surprised, like what Mixon's done lately. I mean, he's on a roll, and they're at home, so I guess I got to put my faith in Mixon. Like he's let us down in the past in like it seemed like smash spots, but I'd ride with momentum and take him over Najee this week if I was forced to pick between the two.
Theo, which one do you go?
I'm gonna go with Mixon as well. I just think he's gonna have a strong end of the season. I like Najee as well, but I'll lean Mixon as well.
Heineken or Carr, Darrin?
Carr's on the road at Dallas, if I'm not mistaken, which smells like trouble to me. So I would, again, Heineke coming off a good game. You would hope he continues with that.
Theo, rest of the season, does it change for you?
I mean, you got to go Heineke right now. I think that that Washington's going for 3 in a row. They beat the Bucs, they beat the Panthers. Those were both good defenses, and Heineke got 2 wins over them, and now he's going against another pretty decent defense in Seattle. But you got to like it. Go Heineke, 3 touchdowns last week.
Yeah, Seattle coming across. I mean,
just fun to
yeah,
watch.
there you go. In the West East team. So you got to fade that.
Right.
So Washington's going for 3 in a row, JD.
Darrin, Profesh links it all together, full circle. Darrin, F1, Mr. McLaurin or DK Metcalf?
Oh, I'm going McLaurin all day on this one.
Theo?
McLaurin, easy.
All right. Fantasy Mojo, Mr. Darrin Amari. Dude, you're an OG. You're a pillar of the industry. Much respect to you, much honor, like from myself and the GOAT District. I'm sure it's from Theo as well.
Oh, 100.
We appreciate the time you've given us tonight. Hopefully we can get you back, especially you talked about the playoff challenge. We're big fans of that tournament on the FFPC. Maybe we can get you back for that. But we appreciate all the goodness you dropped tonight. Remind the people about the website. Anything else you want to drop before we close this out?
No, just fantasymojo.com. Like I said, with the playoff challenge coming up, we'll have some good data around that. And some really big high stake players like come to our site at that time of year. And check it out. Follow us on Twitter at Fantasy Mojo. We'll keep you up to date when there's something worthwhile to come and check out at that time.
And if I'm not mistaken, you've got some gear on the Viridian Global as well, which we're both rocking right now. Dude, stand up, man. Look at that beautiful thing.
That's
you guys
awesome.
are all
I
big
do like
fans.
the sweatshirt.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's like branding. You know, like I
That's
get
Viridian.
complimenting on my branding. Like, dude, you nailed the branding right there with the Fantasy Mojo. And
That's the
yeah,
boys
it's
over at Viridian. Yep.
guys, the hoodies. You say the hoodies. I got the hat right now. I got the Canadian Best Ball Championships hat on right now. It's just comfortable stuff, guys. And we're all into fantasy. Support the show. Support the Mojo out there on Viridian. You can get hoodies, hats, all the goodness, toques for the cold weather for sure. But appreciate you up here in Canada, right? You know what I'm saying, Darrin? We appreciate you, Darrin. Thanks for hanging with us tonight. Thanks for sharing the screen, all the goodness. Thank you for bringing the site because you've helped me win a lot of leagues. All seriousness, I'm sure it's the same for Theo. So we thank you, brother.
All right, guys. And it's good to help out. And good luck this final week. We'll see. Hopefully your team's squeeze into the playoffs. So I got a lot on the bubble myself. So hit the waivers and make it happen.
Awesome. Theo, anything you want to add before we close this bad boy out?
No, I just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. It's a great day, obviously a great day for all Americans, but it's a great day for football fans where we get 3 games. Hopefully we get some fantasy goodness that day and just everybody listening in to have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And a special thanks to Darrin. This was awesome. I think that anybody who listened to this learned a lot, and it was just a fantastic episode. And I want to point out to the Goat District viewers that we have a special all-Canadian Goat District on this Thursday. JD, what time you starting? 10:30?
Yeah, 10:30, 11. We'll do it. Or I'm gonna put out the details. Check out the Twitter at Goat District. We'll put out the details around that range. The idea is to prep you guys for that day's slate and for anything the remainder of that weekend.
Yeah, so it's going to be JD with a couple of very, very good Canadian fantasy football analysts, all guys that have been on the show. So that's going to be a fun one. And yeah, this was a great show. And next week we have Chris Eibel, an NFFC Hall of Famer. So we'll continue, bring on the sharp, high stakes players to get you going for these playoffs.
I don't even know how to work this camera yet, but dude, Theo is like Mojo is a perfect example of this. Like Theo is just bringing all kinds of goodness to the district. You guys need to smash the subscribe, smash the like. We got you got Schroeder coming back. It's just the monsters that have been on the show. Not only have they been here to give you guys goodness and help you guys out, they're coming back to help you down the stretch. So make sure you tune in, guys. We got a bunch of goodness. Theo talked about it this Thursday before the slate. 10-11 Eastern time is around the plan right now. I'm gonna tweet out the details, but we got our boy Ty from True North, who's one of the best data guys out there. I put him up there with the Mojo and all the OGs. He reads the goodness that these guys delivers, and he helps you kind of mold that into your rosters so that you can take down those W's. And I got my boy Kyle Senra from Going for Two and Full Press Fantasy, and we might have some surprises. We might get some. You guys are down there eating turkey and just stuffing your faces. Maybe we'll get a couple guys to jump on and share the goodness. But guys, in all seriousness, smash it tonight. One of our favorite guests, one of our best guests tonight with the Fantasy Mojos. Get those W's, guys, because I know Theo was we were talking before we came on. There's some crucial W's to be had this week. Number 1. Number 2, if you play Fantasy on the FFPC, you have trade deadlines coming up this week, this Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. So make sure you're on top of that. Guys, get the W's. Thanks for tuning in. We'll check you all later. That's all I got.
GOAT district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back, now all of a sudden they don't make any sense? Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's a... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
Say hello to my little friend!